Welcome to the IT Crowd podcast, where technology leaders converge with the boardroom elite. In this digital hub, the pulse of cybersecurity, mobility, managed services, and networking comes alive. Here, innovators and decision makers unite, forging a dynamic dialogue for tomorrow's success. So whether you're a tech aficionado or a C-suite strategist, this is your platform. Join hosts Richard Rodriguez and Josh Lowrey as they bridge these worlds, curating insights and fostering a collaborative dialogue. The IT Crowd podcast is proudly brought to you by the following sponsors. ClearSync Solutions, unifying your technology solutions with simplicity. From M&A integration to global connectivity, cybersecurity to managed services, we're your comprehensive partner aligning your business goals with technology for energy, oil and gas, and financial service firms. Trust our proven track record. ClearSync Solutions. One ClearSync, countless possibilities. eCentire, the authority in managed detection and response, protects the critical data and applications of our customers from the known and unknown cyber threats by providing exposure management, managed detection and response, as well as incident response services designed to build your organization's cyber resilience and prevent business disruptions. By combining open XDR platform technology, 24/7 threat hunting, and proven security operation leadership, eCentire's award-winning MDR services and team of experts help organizations anticipate, withstand, and recover from cyber attacks. Evolve IP. Evolve IP is the only provider that can start with a single remote hybrid workforce solution and grow the account into a multi-solution contract. Evolve IP delivers integrated work anywhere technologies that enable IT departments to do more with less by getting them out of the PC, BBX, and VPN business. By leveraging our underlying providers, Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, and Citrix, Evolve IP offers services in 4 categories: Microsoft Teams direct routing, virtual desktop, virtual servers, disaster recovery, backup as a service, and O365 Azure, contract centers, customer experience, leveraging data as a service, and any CCaaS provider without a VPN or corporate-owned PC. Put us up against any standalone Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, VDI-Data as a Service, VCAS, or CCaaS vendor. You'll find that Evolve IP offers the best support, fully optimized solutions, and the ability to consistently grow the account so you can make more money.
Welcome to the IT Crowd podcast. We are coming to you live from the Accelerated Mobile Power Studios in the Woodlands office here. I'm going to give you a little background on that here in a minute. I'm joined, as always, with the co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Richard Rodriguez. How are you?
Doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing great. You look like this looks very sports host. You look like a sports host right now. I like this.
Well, I was going to have a tea time afterwards, but we have to work.
This is pretty impressive. We're going to tell the audience where we are here in a minute. We like to keep them in suspense for a second. But is this the most beautiful office you've ever been in your entire life?
It's amazing, and they're doing so much more to it. And then there's so much history of the building. It's fascinating.
And this is we're in the Woodlands, Texas. I actually live in the Woodlands, so it's nice for you to come out and visit me. I know that a lot of my friends call this South Dallas. Yeah. I call this zoning, so welcome. Did you like how there's curbs and sidewalks?
Sidewalks,
yes,
are huge compared to where I live.
It's very nice. Yes, we have some sidewalks and there's restaurants within walking distance. We are actually overlooking Lake Woodlands, which at its deepest point I believe is about 8 feet. So be very careful.
Yeah, you can drown.
Yeah, you got to really find the deepest point out there. But how have you been? It's been a minute since we've done this. What have you been up to?
We've been busy. We have been busy doing events.
Yes.
And, dealing with our clients, thank God.
Yeah.
And, yes.
Business is good?
Business is good. Yeah. And we're gearing up for more events. We've got an event next week that we've got to get to.
Where are you going next week?
With the Stark Ranch for Barrels and Clay.
Oh, that's right.
With our
up
partners
North Texas.
at the Merit Advisors. So that'll be fun. And it's always a good time.
That is going to be great. That is a beautiful ranch. They call it the Woodlands of the North, I believe.
Do they really?
I believe that's what it's been called before. If not, we're going to put that in the ethos there. So, well, I believe we've left this guy in suspense long enough. He's actually one of my favorite people. Today's a special day in his world, too. It's his 20th anniversary in his family. We're just going to dump out all of his – he said he got in trouble because he didn't want to say anything publicly, but we're just going to put it on the podcast, too. This is how important – that we take the 20th anniversary. So this is a friend of the program, a friend of us in general, Mr. David Bosco. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Josh and Richard, thanks for having me on.
So, David, there are so many great connections on how we're going to be able to talk to you today, not the least of which is that you and I have actually known each other for the majority of our lives, but we didn't know that until the last couple years.
That's right.
Isn't that a small world?
It is a small world, that North Texas crowd.
Yeah, we grew up in
Blood
a small...
runs deep.
That's right. Small town called Trophy Club, Texas, and we used to play in your yard when we were kids because you had a great backyard. And again, we didn't really realize that until later in life when we were just kind of playing the name game, and turned out that was just another connection, even though we'd known each other in business for a couple years at that point.
Yeah, I think it was actually an Instagram post. You were at the OG Babe's Chicken. I'm like, Babe's Chicken? Holy crap. Like, I remember going in and they're like, you want to see the baby rattlers? And they come out with the little cage, and it's like baby rattlers for like a little kid. And it's like, holy crap.
You're going to be, I think we're all blown away by how many people actually know Babe's Chicken.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, it's fantastic.
See, exactly. Babe's Chicken is unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Oh, my God. Super fat. I could talk about this all day long. That is so good. Well, so we don't work at Babe's Chicken. We've moved on since Trophy Club. Today is your anniversary. We can't talk about that. You are employed gainfully now. You're a co-founder of a business called Accelerated Mobile Power. I kind of screwed that up in the intro. There's a lot of things to remember in this intro. It's very difficult to do. I got the it crowd. I'm a mobile studio, or am I mobile? It's just difficult. So I'm calling it AMP because that's kind of what the industry knows. So, But it's not. It's Accelerated Mobile Power.
That's right.
Okay. And I said we're in your offices, and that is true, but you're part of a conglomerate, really, one of the most unique groups in the energy, because I don't want to call it oil and gas. It's an energy group.
Yes.
Can you give us just a little bit of background on that?
Totally, Josh. So Accelerated Mobile Power is part of a family of companies, as I like to call it. BUSA Corporation is the parent organization, and under BUSA you have three pillars, and that's Evolution Well Services, which is leader in electric hydraulic fracturing, made a lot of the tables and fixtures that a lot of people are sitting at today from a technology standpoint, and innovating the market and understanding how electricity feeds into delivering a more efficient, reliable, better emissions profile frac application. You've got Dynamis Power Solutions, which is the packager and integrator of the power generation equipment that Evolution and AMP uses inside of its fleet. Anything from 35 megawatt turbine down to a 2.5 megawatt recip engine, some battery storage, distribution gear that's inside of that. And then you've got Accelerated Mobile Power, or AMP, as we like to be called by our trade name. And AMP is a power as a service company. And what we do is we offer mobile power generation equipment delivered to the customer site, providing a utility-like experience where we deliver assets, operations, maintenance, mobilization, monitoring, and availability guarantee. And what that allows the customer to do at that point is press the easy button, not have to worry about how electricity is getting delivered to them, what the reliability looks like. They get to focus on their business and allow us, who has a core competency of managing power generation, to manage that for them. So we like to say it's power delivered.
Okay. And how old is the company?
So AMP, we are officially 1 year in business this month.
Oh, look at this.
So,
Well done.
So my partner and I, Travis, we ended up, we were both at Dynamis. He was vice president of business development, sales and marketing. I was director of business development. And we saw this trend in the market where folks, you look at an E&P or a frac service company that doesn't have power as their core competency. They have the need to build out mechanics, supply chain, electrical, gas team, controls, operations team to manage it all in the field. And that's a lot for a company to say, hey, I want to bolt that on as a piece of a business that you haven't established that day one. This is not for any geek off the street. It takes a lot of experience, a lot of capital, a lot of technology and intellectual property. And this did not percolate overnight. It was, multiple years of kind of seeing where the market is heading, and this technology being developed to go, now is the time that you enter in and go, it's a right time to enter into the space and create, a full service company that is based upon the experts who have actually developed this market. Mm-hmm. And, I like to tell the story. Our shareholder, we're, private company, single shareholder. We had approached him with the business idea, probably about, I would say, a month and a half, 2 months after I'd started with the company. And we're like, look, we see the market going this way. Market timing has to be right. And it was prime for us to go ahead and start the business. And a year in, we're probably at about, last count is about 380 megawatts contracted and being deployed into the field. Will be at about 530 megawatts plus this year.
So for the layman, what does that mean to the average person?
That's a great question. So 35 megawatts on average can power anywhere from 10,000 to 40,000 homes or businesses, just depending on what their loads are. A single
10,000
Yep.
can do 40,000 homes.
No, 35 megawatts.
I'm sorry, 35 megawatts.
Can serve 10,000 to 40,000 homes or businesses, just depending on how that's sliced up.
Okay.
Best way to look at it is about 40,000 homes.
And you have how many megawatts?
Today it's about 380
Wow.
megawatts. Yeah. So about 530 by the end of the year. Typical frac fleet, if we're looking at, electric frac, you're talking about a 35 megawatt turbine on the low side, 2 35 megawatt turbines if it's a simul-frac, pumping 180 barrels a minute, 9,500 to 10,000 PSI. It is an awesome amount of power, and you get a visceral connection, is what I like to call it. When you show up on location, you don't hear all of these loud things going on in the background, but you feel like just the power that's around you. And it's kind of odd. I never have heard a positive displacement piston pump or a actual frac pump that's on the back of the trailer ever make a noise in my life, because you got diesel engines. I got tinnitus from being a mechanic for a period of time in my life. And, you go over there and you hear this kind of sucking and whizzing, and it's like, holy crap, I never
hear it.
I never knew it made that sound.
So what does that look like from an equipment kind of footprint standpoint that you guys deploy to a site?
Great question, Richard. So if it's a accelerated mobile power standard package for, I give a couple examples, but like a frac application would be a DT35 turbine package with a black start generator. We have some additional kit, including an operator's control trailer that has storage and an ATS transformer built into that. Dimensionally, you're looking at like 40 to 42 foot wide by about 86 foot long. And that's where power density really matters. Like, there's a bunch of ways for you to take a hammer and hit different nails, right? But you're not going to use a sledgehammer to drive a finishing nail, right? You've got to pick the right tool for the right application. And that's where the way we've built the business is, agnostic on power. We've selected specific assets based upon best-in-class technology, but we're not going to tell a customer that has a gas plant in New Mexico, for example, that has to meet, certain emissions requirements and has certain load conditions that, this asset fits better than the other just because we want to move it. It really comes down to more of a consultative type of approach where we are picking the right asset based upon many different variables that we consult them on. Hey, this is, at the end of the day, the lowest cost of relative emissions, the best reliability, the tightest footprint, yada, yada, yada.
So before we go any further, I want to just let the audience know, and maybe even you know, what this podcast is really about. Okay, so this is the IT Crap podcast, and it's refers to senior level executives talking to IT personnel.
Yep.
And because they're a group that often doesn't talk to each other. And it started out simple of there's things that you don't know that can hurt you, right? Yep. We just felt like, look, we're walking into a world where too many senior people are seeing an email like, I'm going to click this button, and all of a sudden they've just opened a cybersecurity nightmare for their company, right? We're like, we can't have that happening to our friends that own businesses. So how can we alert them of things like that?
Yep.
So that was really the basic genesis of the podcast. It's evolved into a lot more than this. So with that being said, we do have a lot of those types of people that listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
And they're now tuning into you right now. They're like, what am I listening to?
Sure.
But it really is important because they don't know about BUSA. And they don't really understand when I joked about, is this the nicest office they've ever been into with Richard? What I'm really saying there. I'm not just saying this is a great table and you mentioned they built a lot of the furniture. That's like, I don't want that comment to get lost in what we're actually talking about. So audience, I'm stopping the conversation so I can really break down what we're really talking about. This is a group of companies, Busa, and then the three that he mentioned underneath there. Specifically, we'll talk about AMP, but there is a mindset across the board of first-in-class technology, first-in-class leadership or thought leadership.
Yep.
We're only going to implement the best technology out there, and what does that look like? We're not going to rebuild another wheel. Let's build a new wheel.
Yes.
And I think that, and I would like you to kind of talk about that as you see fit, because the things you're talking about, if somebody doesn't understand what this is, they're going to think that everyone's doing this.
Correct.
And it's just not the case.
That's right.
To where when you say you can hear a pump and the plunger going in and out, well, somebody may think, oh, that's okay, unique. I guess that's a thing but it's just so unique that's something that should be pointed out, that you guys are creating new technologies and implementing new technologies that it's changing the way the industry is doing certain things.
Yes.
So from that standpoint, I really just kind of want to get your take on the mindset of technology.
Yep.
and how you view this and what you guys are, because I don't really even know how to say it. Everything that I think about AMP just screams technology to me, from the logo to the brand to how you do certain things. It's technology driven.
Yep.
And is that something that you guys talked about the whole way through?
1,000%.
Okay.
Innovation, you look at the tagline of a company. Everybody's got a tagline. Evolution is innovation, not imitation. Dynamis is innovation through integration. AMP is innovated power delivered. Innovation and technology and understanding of, we don't want to take somebody else's widget and just slam it into an application. That has been the core of the DNA that our executive chairman, Jeff Morris, who is
super unique, by the way.
Awesome dude.
Yes.
And he's these companies, this is his brainchild as well as our shareholders, right? They took a huge chance on, call it 10 years plus ago, that electric frac and all of the technology that goes into that. And when we're talking about technology, this isn't just like mechanical technology, it's control systems. I've got an engineering background I went to school for network engineering. So
he was from the smart part of our neighborhood, people. Just we're going to move on, but keep going.
But the dumbest guy out of the smartest group of people, which is where I'm happy being inside of a business, right? You look at the controls technology, the edge node devices that we are constantly able to take information locally at the operating site in the middle of an oil field, transmit that over the internet through a point-to-point encrypted tunnel that shares it back to our servers. That information is analyzed real time through AI modeling, doing predictive analytics and maintenance, understanding condition-based maintenance, as opposed to saying, hey, it's been X amount of hours, the maintenance sheet tells me to change it. Why are you going to go ahead and leave money on the table or put yourself at operational risk if you're about to start, some type of operation that requires 48 hours of straight runtime? You could put yourself into a situation where you may, prematurely damage a piece of equipment because you didn't make the right decision. Hey, I know it says I got 24 hours left, but I'm going to put myself in this unusual position where I could end up damaging that piece of equipment. So that whole ecosystem where we're just not, a service company that takes other people's things and puts them in the field. Talking about AMP, that's the same thing for the rest of our family of companies. There's just technology, innovation, agility built all throughout these walls, and that's part of our DNA. That's really why we are able to develop and come to market with very differentiated service and product solutions versus many other folks in the market. And that's not saying anything negative. Like, there's other folks out there that have done a fantastic job and innovated really, really cool things. But, the one thing that we do have is consistently, you look at consistency, right? the business has consistently grown. It's consistently been the leader, and we have created new business models out of the initial intellectual property that was developed and established this market that we're in today. It was pretty cool.
Do you guys have the cool data vans?
We do.
Okay.
And Jeff he's created a new data van that has a control room built into it, and then a storage room, and then there's a ATS transformer and a Black Star generator, where usually somebody would bring out 4 different pieces of equipment. And on that, we've got Starlink, backup cellular network as well, fiber optic cabling, single motor, multi-mode, depending on what the distance is. There is a ton of IT gear that is sitting inside of those pieces of equipment. It's not just your analog guys sitting there dialing like, I got to nail frequency and voltage and power factor. There is so much happening behind the scenes, and you look at the, multi terabytes going to like petabytes that we probably have getting close to in storage of 10 years of operational experience. And that's that's on the turbine side. I mean, on the frac side, they're doing the same thing. I mean, from there's cool sensors out there that you can understand like what fluid ends are doing, from clacking and making an unusual frequency and knowing, hey, I've got to replace valves and seats before I wash out a fluid end. And for all the folks that aren't familiar with those terminologies inside of the, IT infrastructure business, essentially that's taking input information, analyzing it, and quantifying what this means from a reliability standpoint. And that's where I feel the transition in the market to more data is so important for all of us to get more efficient. And that's not just in oil and gas, it's everywhere, right?
Well, and let me give you just a real-time example of what that means to, for instance, my other business is a fluid end manufacturer, raw material. And go back 9 years ago, I will never forget one of my clients said, if you can just get us to 900 hours on a fluid end, he said, I'll give you all of my business. 900 hours is all he wanted.
It's pretty low-hanging fruit.
Exactly. And he said, I'll give it all. And we're talking hundreds per month. And I would bet you that if you're not averaging 3,000 today, then you're not even a player in the business anymore.
Totally.
And it has to do with what you're talking about. Like, they have gotten so good at helping preventative maintenance for the things you're talking. And that's, again, I think 3,000 is the bare minimum. You really, there's some of these that push much past this.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's real world application. And then just track this down. What does this mean for the average person? You're like, all right, 3,000 hours, great. What does that mean to me? Well, it means less waste. It means less risk for people going out there. It means safer in work environments. It means there's a lower chance of spills. There's so many things down the line that happen. There's a cost of the price of oil goes down. There's price of everything goes down, operations go down, because you're not putting so much waste into the environment. And what I mean by the environment, I mean the entire ecosystem of everything we're working with here. So this isn't just data, X's and ones here. I mean, this is real dollars that add to the energy transition. I mean, this is a term of energy transition that I think everybody's waiting for algae to come save the world for energy. This is the part of the energy transition that we get lost on.
Yes.
Is things you're talking about doing.
Yep. No, totally, Josh. And understanding when you don't have those, obviously you have the savings on the R&M side of it, but the missed opportunity cost, I think that's something that a lot of people lose kind of track on, is if you're having to do more maintenance or replace more things and stuff, to say the least, that means less productivity is happening. And that's where technology becomes so important to visualize like all this data. Like, you can get lost in looking at bar graphs and line graphs and, zeros and ones, right? Like, there's so much information to absorb, but taking that information and visualizing it and making it easy for folks to make quick, actionable decisions to make, their jobs easier, safer, better from a cost perspective, and more efficient for the customer. Because at the end of the day, right, with any business, you have to deliver your customer better tangibles at the end
Correct.
of the day. And that's where I'm a firm believer and a huge proponent of technology in not only the oil and gas space, the entire economy, right? It makes us better. The information you have in your car today is insane, right? Like it can tell you essentially, hey, usually you'd go 3,000 miles in between oil change. Got some cars today, it'll tell you 10,000, 15,000 miles before an oil change. Like, I mean, that stuff right there is really, really cool to me. I get kind of lost in it. I can get in the weeds and weave baskets, but I definitely am a big fan of data and technology.
So Richard gets mad at me when I tell everybody that we do AI. He's like, Josh, stop telling people that. He's like, you've heard a term one time and you just keep using it. Well, first of all, I don't even know what it is. Because I heard you mention some AI stuff a minute ago. Richard, would you like to explain to him what I view AI?
David can explain to us how they truly are using AI in the product versus some of the applications that you like to talk about.
I'm not entirely sure I know what AI is, apparently.
No, it actually.
But I can do it.
It gets lost.
I do AI, just FYI.
No, Josh, you are AI. The whole AI piece gets lost on people because it's so complicated, but it actually is really simple. It's machine learning algorithms, and you have a baseline of data that you input as your control, right? And over time, you're going to see deviations upward or downward, or it could say straight line, right? And based upon those data inputs and how you see where on components, impact of life, impact of performance and operation, you then can figure out these deviations that let you know when a piece of equipment or anything. Same thing on a network, right? You've got, different systems that sit on top of a network topology that can see data packets and things happening. And there was one that, used to be out there years ago where it could visualize a network and you'd be able to see, hey, is this out of date from a patch? Is that out of date from a patch, right? And there was SolarWinds, if I'm not mistaken. And so having those pieces and tools to be able to make decisions much more quickly and not have a human being have to make a gut decision based upon what they think is going on, you can take that information and really fine-tune your business and your operations better than letting a person decide, because there's just so much information to process. And humans, we process information really well, but not to the level of a computer that's fixed, sitting there doing a certain task with some code layered on top of it that is fine-tuned to be able to execute on that. So we use, machine learning algorithms to understand as simple as filter life. How much life do we have left in an air filter? Can we push it past what the expected replacement that this manufacturer said it needs to be replaced? Engine life. We can understand what that means and quantify, hey, you know what? Manufacturer says X, we can get out of the engine, we need to do an overhaul. We can push that to 10 to 15% over. Those pieces of machine learning algorithms, the way I see it, that is artificial intelligence. There's obviously the Chat GPT and a lot of these other things where it's more subjective, right? And you can speak to it and it will think, right?
So one of the things we talked about earlier off camera was, and we've been very oil field centric so far in the conversation, but there are other verticals that AMP can serve as well. If you want to talk about some of that, especially in the data center community, more of the technology community, if you want to, expand on that.
Yeah, so kind of to what I was tying into before, Richard, I think because of all this data, this AI kind of boom that we're entering into, the data center market is absolutely insane, right?
Yes.
You look at 2022 power growth, okay, we're at about 17 gigawatts-ish worth of load demand for data centers in 2022. By 2030, that's expected to grow to 35 gigawatts. And a lot of those numbers, as we were talking about, are severely underestimated because of the cooling capacity of these GPU chips. They run much hotter.
Yes.
You got to have much,
and the power draw on them it's
phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And that's, that is a huge market that we see opportunities in. The biggest thing why we have been waiting to get into the data center space. We've had a lot of conversations with some big players. It's really been, we wanted to build up our install base and not put all of our eggs in one basket first, right? Like, I mean, that's something from a strategy perspective. You don't want to go whole hog into one thing and then be left, holding a towel. So we are very interested and having a lot of conversations with data center customers. We're seeing a huge amount of growth opportunity in the data center alley of Virginia. That is where the largest swath of infrastructure was built out early, in the fiber optic days when dark fiber and sonnet rings were built out across the United States. That's where a lot of these data centers are setting up shop. Same as Atlanta, Georgia, Indiana, Illinois, Arizona. And it was all based upon where there was not a big population of people. They had really, favorable conditions for building out real estate, because that's what a data center is at the end of the day, right? It's a real estate play, and they lease out space and floors and racks to customers who are looking for compute power. And so with all of this kind of proliferation of Internet of Things, lots of data being processed, AI, everything's going to the cloud. Nobody really owns true server infrastructure inside of their offices anymore, right?
You'd be shocked how many still do.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
We've tried to migrate ourselves a lot of that to the cloud,
right.
Just because the kind of turnover of the cycle of upgrading that equipment. But either way, we are seeing a huge market opportunity for data centers. And what's really interesting is you look at the amount of assets that are available in the market to serve that load growth. So in some cases, you're talking about 2 to 5 years, 2 to 7 years plus to be able to get anywhere from data center could be 60 megawatts, 70 megawatts for one building, up to a full campus is upwards of 450 megs. And I mean, that's bigger than our fleet, 450 megs today. It's huge.
For one center.
For one data center. And
That's
5 nines reliability, right? You've got to have 99.9999%, and they got diesel generators to go ahead and back it all up. So that's where we are seeing a huge opportunity, and there's not enough assets in the market. There's a disparity between the supply and demand.
And let me tell you something. I was invited to kind of invest in one of these things recently. The amount of money required is unbelievable. It is. Behind all this. So I don't know where these people are getting the money for this. It's a huge sum of money to fund and build any of these data centers or power them more appropriately.
Yes.
Yeah.
The look at the whole enchilada, to say the least. It's taken a ton of capital. What's interesting, though, is that what the dynamic we're seeing is you've had a lot of these companies who have said, we're going to build, the roads, we're going to build the buildings, and kind of like Rome, they will come. And they've came and said, we want to build, X amount of rack space out. We're going to prepay for XYZ contracts, hoping that the utility would be there. And they're not showing up. So now you've got stranded capital inside of a building and all the things and stuff that went around it. You've got customers that have maybe prepaid money or signed contracts expecting that there was going to be compute power coming online. And the utility is the one going, sorry, guys, it's going to be 2 to 7 years before you can get it. So your investment return profile kind of stretches out significantly. And it's creating an environment where, in the United States at least, right? Like, you look at, I think it's over 60% of data center capacity, 60% plus, is being built out in the United States. There's a lot of unfavorable power generation that's available in other countries, where you look at a data center or technology company from an optics perspective, they want the cleanest, meanest, greenest and most reliable electricity. One thing I've been concerned about with the lack of investment in infrastructure and all these other spaces is it pushes a lot of this data center capacity to go to Asia, specifically China, where they can put up a coal-fired power plant that they don't care about emissions. They don't have an ESG strategy, or maybe care about those things as much as we do in the United States, and that creates a real opportunity for us to go, what's an innovative way we can figure out a solution to solve this problem in the United States? And so that's where we have kind of seen this coming. and gone, we're picking the right assets that meet permitted emissions applications. They're efficient, they're highly reliable, they fit very well into a data center, they're super, super quiet. Turbines, for example, I tell customers, you go and you flip your light switch on, you don't ask, hey, did the power plant do their maintenance today? Did they change their oil? Did they change their air filters? You trust it's going to operate. Right. And that's what I think a lot of data center customers want, is they don't want to own the assets. Kind of that similar story in oil and gas, right? They want to focus on what they do best. So what we're hoping to achieve is align ourselves with some very, very strategic partners. Because in business, right, you want to have, like-minded individuals working together. Alignment has to be there from a partnership perspective, and be able to help some of these people with, the capacity we're going to have available to serve that market, to be able to deliver them that utility-like experience, but it's going to be generated from assets AMP delivers.
Is this going to create a competition between oil and gas and data centers for power at some point?
Yeah, so
that never existed before.
One of our mutual friends, John Daniel, this is something that him and a couple other his guys on the team and partners, we talk about it ad nauseum. Is when does like Microsoft come to AMP and say, what's it going to take for you to tell oil and gas to go and shoo and just come and serve us with electricity?
I went to Sarah Week this week. Bill Gates spoke, and my close and personal friend Bill Gates, and they are building a new data center every other day out there.
It's
insane.
It's crazy, man. And there's going to be an inflection point.
That's not a fake stat.
It's
that's
legit.
how fast they're trying to build right now.
I think Amazon's building 3 one per 3 days or something like that as well.
Insane.
It's only going to continue.
It will continue. There's no way around it, right? Because everybody's going to have that power consumption, and the more that you go into AI and applications and everything, it's somebody's got to feed that beast, right?
Do you remember Greg Andrews? Does that name sound familiar? With SNS. For 40 years they've been in, I would call them in the energy business itself, or oil and gas. Mm-hmm. The reason you don't know them is you haven't seen them in 4 years, because they are now doing coated copper lines for energy transfer.
Really?
Yeah, because they can't keep up with these Amazons and Microsoft. And I went to him, I said, are you even still in oil and gas? He's like, yeah, but we cannot keep up with this business over here. It's so busy. It is interesting to hear you talk about this. I've never actually thought about the two groups needing power like this. That is really interesting.
The other interesting dynamic that I can go down a rabbit hole on, I love economics and just business strategy in general, is oil and gas is directly tied to a commodity market. Obviously, we all know that. AI compute power, data centers, it's a game where you've got input costs that drive up what it takes to deliver a service, and based upon that, it's a market demand, right? And people are willing to, if they need to offset some compute power, they need additional, algorithm, hosting space, whatever it may be, data storage, there's a cost associated that you can pass down to your customer. And in the data center space, they're much more willing to go, you know what? We're willing to pay a premium simply because we know we can pass it on to our customer, they can pass it on to theirs, and it just kind of tacks on. Oil and gas is a different dynamic. It's all based upon, what the market, production numbers are, all of these other things, and it's really tough for them to say, you know what, YOLO, we'll pay whatever we want for electricity.
Impossible.
It's not happening.
Or there's national outcry.
Absolutely. So it's
people's cell phone bill goes up. You're like, okay, inflation.
Yep.
Your gas goes up 20 cents. You're like,
oh my God.
Riot.
Yes. Those oil companies.
Yeah, they're making too much money.
Pigs.
That's right.
Which, and that's, the unfortunate kind of comparison, right? Is we have, when you have technology that just makes life easy and you have these creature comforts you're not willing to give up, the actual feedstock that provides most of these technologies with their ability to do what they do, right? Natural gas is the energy that we use for electricity, then coal, nuclear, hydro, and renewables come in there somewhere, right? And a lot of these companies, they rely on oil and gas and that commodity to go ahead and be able to generate electricity, generate materials. It's a piece that I feel almost it's a little flip-flopped where you should be willing to go, hey, energy security is important to me because it feeds the rest of the economy. Like we are all so, reliant on the fact that we have to have energy, and energy comes in multiple different forms, obviously, right? But it's crazy. You're okay with your cell phone bill going up 10%, but you got to pay 30 cents more per gallon of gas. Riots are in the streets. It's nuts.
I mean, we won't make you comment on any geopolitical perspectives here, but it is an amazing position that AMP is about to find itself in with the opportunities for the markets you guys are serving. Because I'm sure you set out 18 months ago when the idea came, or whatever years ago came to you, a year ago starting the business, and now here you are that you've got multiple markets that you can service.
Yes.
Very unique.
Yes.
Smart. I like it.
Yep.
Okay.
It's, the beauty is we're all going to need power for a very long time. Even if renewables end up actually materializing and hydrogen becomes the fuel of the future, to your point earlier, algae, right? My assets will burn it. So I'm totally fine with any type of fuel. It's just the reality is natural gas is what the firm fuel is of the day that is cheap, plentiful, clean, reliable, and allows people access to affordable electricity to feed the economy.
Can you take feed gas from the flare gas? Can you burn that, or do you have to have
1,000%?
Really? That's great.
So what's very unique?
People, can you explain that just so somebody understands what that is?
Yeah. So this is going to kind of go back in time a little bit to Evolution Well Services starting up. Our shareholder owned assets in the Haynesville, and for people that aren't aware of the Haynesville, it's Louisiana, very high BTU. High pressure, formation, lots of natural gas, and you look at an AFE or what it takes for you to construct a well. Okay, the frac piece of it is usually the biggest dollar figure to drill and complete a well and bring it online. And his idea was, we've got all this gas, right? We're a gas play. Why don't we use the natural gas to power our equipment? Natural gas reciprocating engines, they don't have a lot of power density. They can't accept load. So it's like electricity. It's the most efficient way to generate, power. Convert that electricity into mechanical drive technology through an electric motor. And they essentially set out to figure out, how do you take that holistic cycle of using the gas on location, which also drives down, let's call it well-to-wheel emissions, right? You're not trucking diesel fuel on site. Mm-hmm. Could be saving $2 million a month.
Safety, money, all the things we mentioned earlier.
Check.
Correct.
And so,
energy transition, by the way.
It absolutely
100%.
is.
Yep.
But taking that raw, untreated natural gas, running it through a turbine, you're introducing risks of liquids and other things that could damage that equipment. So we set out to go ahead and develop gas processing technology to take the worst, hottest, nastiest gas you could think of, condition that, strip out liquids, remove moisture, heat it to the proper level that it needs to be to go into the turbine, reduce the pressure to the inlet pressure, stabilize everything so that also protects our asset, but allows us to use the largest amount of natural gas, generating the highest amount of power with the lowest environmental impact. Because if you're going right to the fuel source to pick it up from the ground and put it in the piece of equipment, you're eliminating all the associated costs and, again, emissions that go along with that, which usually with diesel, there's about an additional 10 to 15% of emissions versus what comes out the tailpipe. So there's a lot of benefits to using natural gas, especially with pipelines and everything like that. So I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. The using that flare gas is absolutely important, and in most cases, you look at an E&P, the cost to use that, if it otherwise would have been flared in the future, because we don't flare as much or hardly any, you can't anymore, and you shouldn't, right? It's a wasted commodity. It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. They are trying to figure out, how do you use that flare gas to get, more of a gallon out of a smaller squeeze, right?
Okay. Richard, do you have anything?
Now my brain is going on the different possibilities of where that is. I mean, that conversation took a turn that, and again, it goes back to that, right? Like, when you're passing those costs on, and just the different ways that people are willing to accept it, because at some point it is going to be more than their cell bill, right? And everything will come back to oil and gas, because people forget how reliant on energy space that they are, versus just the gas in their car and powering the lights, right? There are so many byproducts of the industry that service the technology industry, right?
Huge.
And so I think it's even though that inflection point is coming, there's going to be a definite downside that people aren't aware of if the power was to go swing one way versus the other, right?
Yep.
I have a question, kind of more for the team, because it does seem like you guys are now at the very front line of some of these new technologies. Travis, you mentioned Travis and you as co-founders. You guys are smart guys, obviously. Your entire team. How often do you sit around and strategize, like, where we're going? What does this look like? What technologies are you continuously looking for new technologies? And then, like, I don't want to bring up cybersecurity, but are you looking for threats? I mean, are you doing SWOT analysis often?
Yep.
Okay. This is something you guys are thinking about?
Absolutely. So on the technology front, whether it's an asset or different information technology systems that can be integrated into our operation, those are critical, because with technology, you get efficient, right? And we don't want our team doing non-value add work at the end of the day. Like I tell my folks, if you got to do more than 4 clicks to 3 clicks to get something done on a computer, we might as well get out an abacus, a slide ruler, and a tablet, writing tablet, and just do it by hand at that point, because you're wasting time. And so we're constantly looking at, different technology that we can put into our fleet. We're actually implementing a new maintenance solution where everybody is going to have iPad tablets in the field. There's going to be different types of barcodes and things that they can scan, information that they can quickly gather, allows more information to be accurately captured, hours to be recorded, data streams to be sent back to the mothership to let us know where all the assets are at, what their health is, what their condition, what's coming up, do material planning. Like, you got to use that data. I know I keep on going back to data, but data is the backstop to drive all of the other actions inside your operations. And as you grow, right, mom and pop shops, you can get by with, verbal communication and text messages and emails and things of that sort. But once a business hits a certain level of critical mass, at that point, you've got to start relying on systems to drive a lot of those processes for you, so you can actually focus on executing, right? Because what we want our people doing is focus on operating the equipment, focus on the supply chain, understand that next obstacle we need to go ahead and overcome, and looking down the road and saying, how can we get out from behind the 8 ball before we see it coming at us, right? So we go through SWOT analysis and strategy as well, understanding and looking at different markets. There's a lot of other really cool emerging markets that are out there that I don't want to bore everybody with, but I think any business, if you create a business plan, it's got to be, a strategy that shows 5 years out, 10 years out. And my brain works in sequence of events and steps. So what we have done is kind of achieve what our strategy is in a year that we thought we were going to do in 2.5 years. And now has kind of accelerated us, no pun intended, to go ahead and start moving our strategy upward to where the data center market is something that we're, back to that circle back conversation, very, very interested in today. But I'm a firm believer businesses should never be stagnant. Should always be looking at what's coming up.
So real quick, I want to just I have a point 1 I want to make after point 2. And maybe I missed it. You said data back to the mothership. Did I miss that? Do you have a mothership somewhere?
Mothership is the cloud. technically, but the mothership is wherever our people are sitting in front of their computers, able to process that information. So we actually have what we call our Operations Excellence Center.
Okay.
And before, that used to be a brick and mortar fixture inside of this building that you're in now,
Right.
as well as at the Dynamis facility down on the southeast side of town.
Okay.
With the advent and beauty of this technology, it all was actually accelerated by COVID, right? People weren't able to work, inside the shop. They weren't able to sit in offices. They had to go remote. And I think, even though that was obviously a tough time for a lot of businesses, people, it accelerated the adoption of technology that we thought was going to be a 7-year transition to a year, right? And because of that, now the mothership, instead of having that physical infrastructure here at our facility, we'd have to have point-to-point VPNs to access it. It's all in the cloud. It's all web-based. So all of the ninjas, as I like to call them, that are analyzing and looking at data and getting that actionable information, the mothership is a screen that they can access, whether they're on the beach in Hawaii, they're sitting at a coffee shop down the road, having a cup of coffee, having lunch, or on the road in the field. They can see all the information in real time. And that just is so important to not be fixed in any business, I feel, in a single location. You got to be able to access that information wherever you're at. So that's a mothership.
Okay. So just people are monitoring this full time.
Yes.
All right. And then the second thing, when we have people on the podcast, people want to come on and they want to tell us about their widget. They're like, this widget, I always tell people, they're like, this widget is the best widget. It's made out of XYZ and it's the best because of, and they start going into details that nobody cares about except for them. And the problem is they end up only entertaining themselves because it's just, they know the ins and outs of whatever that widget is. And I always kind of stop them and say, hey, look, you need to tell people, the audience, what did that widget do for them? And what is it going to do for them? Why should they care about that widget? Because that's what they're going to remember on these podcasts. And as you've been talking today, Richard, I mean, it's amazing to me. I don't know if if we set out for this podcast I didn't realize that AMP was changing this many things about our life. I mean, how many times have we talked about the emissions cleanliness or the safety cleanliness, or like what people are forgetting when we say these things? We're just talking about it like it's no big deal. That's somebody's brother and husband and wife that doesn't have to be put in danger anymore. Like that's a life. That's, that's a finger that doesn't get pulled off potentially, right?
Yep.
Or a truck that doesn't drive off the road because he's tired. Or, those are people. And I try to remember those. And I know you do as well. And and when you talk about some of this power gen stuff, like we make fun of the guy who freaks out about his cell phone bill going up. But, as you've meant, somebody's making a livelihood on their phone and on their computer.
They are.
And you guys are powering a way for that person to make a living that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. That's the widget that is changing people's lives. And again, I'm not sure I really thought we were setting out to do that today. So really interesting stuff you guys are doing here.
Yeah, I feel like I should have, tooted my horn a little bit more about
I'm doing
widgets.
it for you.
But, Josh, for us, well, I
would have gotten lost in the widget talk because the technicalities of these things they're going to go over everybody's head. Only you guys and your engineers know what they are.
That is true. And that's something that the art of storytelling, right? You got to be able to make it relate to the people that you're speaking to. And I guess that's something that I felt coming onto this, or when I'm having a conversation with anybody, I can get into a situation and talk about the minutia of technology, what our widget does, what our service does from a technical standpoint, but you got to kind of know who your audience is.
I think you've done a great job on it.
Read a great book when I first started in business development. This guy who actually taught me the craft after I got from being a network engineer, I found out really quick, like super saturated market, early 2000s, had a family, we've got things and stuff and diapers and bottles and all these, all these consumables that we're having to purchase, and, wasn't making the salary that I wanted to. And so got into business development. This guy named Ted taught me the craft of business development and gave me a couple of books. And my favorite one was Selling to Vito. And Vito is a very important top officer. And you've got to be able to read a person and understand the context of how you are telling your story and how it makes sense to them, to be able to convey that message, right? Because not every person absorbs information the same way. You got to be able to read the room and understand, like in this case, your podcast, right? It's the crowd. It's not something that people are going to understand power generation assets, but they can appreciate how it directly relates and correlates to their business at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, this is also not 1950 where it's a pump jack going up and down, right? I mean, energy today is very technical.
It is.
And, there's the guy who's listening to this who cares about cybersecurity is going to absolutely care about the mothership.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things when you said we're moving to an iPad and we're doing these, like people in the world of IT absolutely care about this stuff and vice versa. I mean, the world of oil and gas needs to care about the things that these guys are talking about. So no, this is just like the oil and gas people are competing with with Microsoft. The IT world needs to start caring about the same things that these other people are caring about. So it's a unique time.
And to that point, it's critical infrastructure, right? And you have to harden that critical infrastructure to make sure that people who are bad actors are not going to get into the equipment and cause challenges or disrupt. And that's where, being able to firm up these resources and make sure that, hackers or attackers from outside of our country, or, maybe people are just being malicious inside of our country's walls, are not able to get in and, create havoc for people that should not exist.
Well, we are wrapping up. We've obviously learned that I'm close and personal friends with Bill Gates. We have learned that I know all about AI. And there's a couple things we haven't learned about you. One is that you are also a co-host or a host of a podcast yourself.
Yes, sir.
What is your podcast called?
So the podcast is the Energy Espresso.
Okay. Great name, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic. And what we do is we take the enriching world of coffee and, what everybody, I wouldn't say everybody, a lot of people start their day with, and they really appreciate, waking up in the morning, having that morning brew to go ahead and get their day started. And we combine that with the energy industry. And it's not just oil and gas, it's energy transition, it's other technologies or pieces that are feeding into that market, and understand the journeys that a lot of these leaders and people who have innovated and created those businesses, what they have gone through in their lives, how they got to where they're at today, what they're doing inside of the industry to go ahead and add value and differentiate, and also understanding some kind of personal pieces that I think are important. At the end of the day, us being humanized as people is really important, and understanding what gets them out of bed in the morning, some special things that they care about, and how they are doing something to give back to their community. I think that's really important for us to be able to highlight. So that's kind of the long and short dog and pony show of the show.
So you get up and you start your day with a cup of coffee, espresso. What do you drink?
I do. So depending on the day,
if you're going to bed at 2:30, you've got to have something early when you get up, I would imagine.
I do. I usually wake up at 5:30, so it doesn't take me much to operate. I'm kind of bent.
Yeah.
I have anything from a Keurig, an AeroPress, a cappuccino machine.
You have all these at the house?
I do. Okay. I do. And then I've also got a pour over, with a filter as well. And if I usually have 1 or 2 cups of coffee when I wake up before I leave the house, get to the office. I drink probably too much coffee, but it's the fuel that gets me going. I love it.
I'm a big espresso guy. Yeah, I just had an espresso. I want another one actually. So,
but I at least try and offset it with water so that you don't get dehydrated.
Cheers.
Yes.
I celebrate the collection.
Yep.
I'm a big espresso guy. I think it's a great break. The Europeans do it right. They have the little one shot. They just stand when they have it. They come in, they drink it, and they're out.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you're doing that. I love the name. I love the concept of it too. So good luck, and let us know if we can do anything for you on this.
Absolutely. We got some great guests that are coming up too, and going to continue to, reach out to people and see if they're interested in coming on and telling their story as to how they're, doing things differently, and being able to share their experience, strength, and hope at the end of the day as to how they got to where they are.
Well, don't think we do this as a wrap up on this podcast, but if you don't mind, I would love to know, because your career is unique.
Yeah.
What is a piece of advice that you would give yourself, or a younger version of yourself, or someone who's 20, 25 years ago? What's something you've learned across your career path here, or life path, if you will?
So for me, Josh, I would say it's not just one thing. I guess it's kind of a conglomeration of things of, be willing to be humble and know that you're wrong.
Oh, man.
And be, okay to admit that and understand how do you learn from that mistake and don't create the same mistakes again. It's the definition of insanity. Innovate yourself every single day. Don't stay stagnant, and be willing to listen to other people that know more than you do.
Richard.
I mean, I pointed at you already.
I felt that
humbleness.
This is going south for me. I got Lauren looking at me over here. The producer of the show is staring at me pretty hard. Maybe we'll delete this part too. No, that was great.
Edit
advice.
that out.
No, that's outstanding. Well, Richard, would you like to add anything to this wonderful show?
Thank you so much for coming on, David.
How did you guys set this thing up? This is great, by the way. I just walk around in circles anymore.
Shoot.
I think it was probably one night after drinks.
Yeah,
like, hey,
I think
podcast.
we were all out together. We were having a good time, and Richard's like, "We should do a podcast." I'm like, 1,000% agree, and end up going back and forth over text. Did a phone call, chatted about it, and here we are today.
Outstanding. Well, this has been awesome. This has been awesome. So let's give AMP some publicity here.
Yeah.
What's the website?
acceleratedpower.com.
Okay.
You can find us on LinkedIn at Accelerated Mobile Power.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn as well. I show up as Dave Bosco, because if I go back and change my profile name, it eliminates everything, and that's
Can't
not
do
fun.
it. No,
So.
you don't want any part of that. We live in a digital world. You have to, it's good or bad. You are what you are.
That's right.
Well, honestly, we appreciate it very much. You can follow us, the It Crowd, on whatever. Tell us. You're better at this than I am. I always forget this.
Yes, follow us on all major platforms. So wherever you choose to consume your podcast, our videos are on YouTube as well.
Yep.
So subscribe to us, listen, like, comment. Josh never reads a bad comment. I read all the comments, so don't be shy.
Yeah, I just forward them on.
Yeah.
Notice if they're going south, I just forward them straight to Rich. Like, yeah, I'll let you handle this one.
It's delegation.
That's right. Yeah. Josh doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, this one can be deleted immediately.
Does
So
this guy know what they're talking about?
that's right.
Yeah.
But
Josh Hader 1001. I don't like that guy.
That's a cybersecurity issue. We'll delete that. But truly, good luck to you guys. You guys have a great team. We know them personally. Anybody listening, you guys should look these guys up. It's a good deal. And the whole Busa family of companies. I mean, phenomenal group. And they really are doing things. If you don't know about energy and what's going on, this is a great company to look into, a great family of companies to look into, but AMP specifically doing some really phenomenal things. So thank you very much, David Bosco. What a stud. Good luck to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
And happy
Thank you,
anniversary
Richard.
to you guys.
Thank you very much. All right.
The It Crowd podcast is proudly brought to you by the following sponsors.
Upright Digital. Upright Digital specializes in partnering with your business to maximize marketing efficiencies. We have a deep understanding of people, their needs, motivations, behaviors, as well as the technologies that enable brands in many industries to utilize what is available in a changing digital landscape. Find us online at uprightdigital.com.
ClearSync Solutions, unifying your technology solutions with simplicity. From M&A integration to global connectivity, cybersecurity to managed services, we're your comprehensive partner aligning your business goals with technology for energy, oil and gas, and financial service firms. Trust our proven track record. ClearSync Solutions. One ClearSync, countless possibilities.